With that, viewers, let's take a very quick glance at what can be the talking points between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Albanese, now that we are going to see a bilateral, that will be taking place between both the leaders. And obviously a lot on the agenda, like we have been discussing. There is trade that we will be discussing, there is nuclear energy. So let's look at some of the talking points. First of all, the trade deal. There is a push to achieve a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. Remember that we've already signed this. There was a greater push between both the nations for this. We want to in fact now elevate our economic cooperation with Australia to a more strategic level. So let's also look at critical minerals and uranium. This is obviously a sector that India will be looking to discuss during this meeting. Australia's proposed uranium supply to India and critical minerals cooperation. Critical minerals, very important for India right now for its in fact EV push that the country is looking forward to, and we are also looking to make our supply chains robust. Apart from that, uranium, we discussed how important that is for India as well for cleaner energy. So these are two talking points that might be discussed. Let's also look at defense and security, where deepening strategic and security ties in the Indo-Pacific. This is something that India has been pushing forward to. Both the nations are part of the Quad, two very strong pillars of the Quad, and they will be looking at strengthening the Indo-Pacific maritime security and defense partnership as well during this bilateral. Let's also look at student visas and education. Now, India has raised a very particular issue of visa delays, and both are pushing forward for education partnerships. Remember that there are a lot of Indian students still making their way to Australia for higher studies, for completing their education, and this is something that India obviously looks at with utmost importance, and we will be pushing forward for the processing of the visa times that are and the delays that the students are facing, that should in fact be resolved sooner. So this is something that we will be looking at both the leaders maybe talking about. Let's also look at tech and diaspora ties, because technology cooperation and stronger people-to-people links is something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pushed for in every country that he has in fact visited. So people-to-people connect is something that we will be looking at strengthening, and tech, obviously AI is the next big thing that India will be also looking at enhancing between both the nations. So let's now that we have the talking points with us, let's open up this discussion and let's welcome Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta, who is a former diplomat, and Professor M.K. Agarwal, who is an economist, who are in fact joining us on this broadcast. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out your time and for speaking to NewsX. We appreciate it. A very good morning to the both of you. Ambassador Gupta, if I can start off this discussion with you, and I want to understand from your perspective, what's the key areas? We are looking at uranium, we are looking at defense and maritime security, obviously strengthening of Indo-Pacific region, and we are also looking at critical minerals. But what, according to you, Ambassador Gupta, is something that will be the highlight of this entire 3-day tour to Australia?
Good morning, Shivani. You have very, precisely given us the talking points. In fact, these are the talking points which I suppose are going to dominate the discussion. Now look at our overall relationship. We already have what we call comprehensive strategic partnership. So that covers economic areas, that covers strategic area and political areas. Now in defense, Australia participate in Malabar exercises. They also participate in Milan exercises. And there are discussions to involve, make them involved in some more exercises. These are basically naval exercises, and these exercises are needed in the Indo-Pacific to ensure that the UN law on the sea is, respected by all the countries. Then we have, now the question of a strategic mineral has come up, and it has become very important for supply chain. particularly in the modern era, and therefore an agreement is likely to be, discussed and agreed upon on this issue. That will also include supply of uranium. Of course, there would be terms and conditions, but exploration of rare mineral earth, particularly for EV batteries, will come up and will be discussed. I am confident that some sort of agreement will be reached on this issue. Then we have this comprehensive economic cooperation agreement that is on the table. I think most of the clauses have been discussed and finalized. The last discussion was held in, I think, January 20, sometime in 25, and the final touches are to be given. This would be sort of free trade agreement where only a few items of exports and import will be subject to duty structure. Rest would be free trade. So this is on the table as well. I hope this can be finalized this time. Our trade is already 33 billion US dollar, and it is likely to go up 50 billion US dollar in the next 3 to 4 years. So I think this is a very, very positive and very healthy growth, and we look forward to make it better in terms of our bilateral trade and economic cooperation. Then we have other issues. Issue of Quad, of course, Quad is important forum, particularly to see that the South China Sea has free navigational rights in the region, and also, nobody is violating the United Nations law on the law of the sea. And then we have, what we call Indian Ocean Rim. Australia is a member of that, and India has been the founder member. So there's a cooperation in that area as well. And as you know, Commonwealth is also one of the, common regional forum in which we participate, both Australia and India. And then you see in one of the, I think it's in North Queensland, there's a port which is now owned by Adani Group of Industries, and that is naturally a very strategic cooperation between our two countries. And that also makes it very clear that India is ready to invest in Australia, to make our economic partnership richer and better. So these are some of the areas apart from the Indian diaspora. Diaspora is increasing, and I think after the original inhabitants of Australia, I'm not talking about the what we call aborigines. I'm talking about after 17th century. Indian diaspora is the largest, and they are peacefully contributing to the economic development of the country. I think the leadership of Australia is very happy with them, and Prime Minister Albanese know it very well, and I'm sure they will facilitate further the studies of Indian students in that country, and of course subsequently possible the employment for them as well. And another area is, of course, cricket and hockey. That is also very important area of collaboration. So all these areas will come up in some form or the other. And I'm sure this visit will add new strength to our bilateral ties. We already have 2+2, that is defense and external affairs ministers of the two countries have an annual meeting of 2+2. So I think that will be further strengthened, and our strategic partnership will attain new heights.
Absolutely, Ambassador Gupta. In fact, let me also rope in Professor Agrawal into this discussion. Professor Agrawal, economic ties is something that India and Australia will also be looking forward to strengthening. We've already seen that being strengthened over the past few years. What is the next step forward for India and Australia in terms of economy?
If you are looking at the global economic scenario, that is not very encouraging or very pleasant. And the situation is that there is a regular type of disturbance, obstacles, or new types of trade barriers coming up across the world. So what is happening, particularly post-COVID, in more pronounced manner, and after Russia-Ukraine war and other wars, what we find that there is a changing global pattern, and in that scenario, all the important partnerships are being thrashed, and it is in this line that Australia wants, and similarly India also wants, that there is a increased collaboration between the two, because the global order has been changed. And in 2022, whatever accord was there in terms of economic and trade cooperation agreement, so that needs to be strengthened. That is the highlight of, probably highlight of this visit. And the next final meeting is expected in New Delhi in October this year. So I hope that its scale will be revised upwards, considering that there are many types of FTAs. CEPA has been signed by several countries in recent uh, period by India. So Australia also wants to rope in India, and it wants to take advantage of this type of partnership, because the global order is, again, I would say, multilateralism is dismantling quite fast. So in this respect, there are several issues that needs to be taken care of. One is that strengthening people-to-people relationship, because that will further increase the relationship between the two, and definitely it will enhance their earnings, whether it is, more of education opportunities for Indians in Australia, or it is the sports industry. I'm not saying only sports, it is the overall sports ecosystem that India is rapidly developing in its own territory, so that it leads to another type of industrial development, making India development. Simultaneously, tourism is, in terms of sports tourism, it is increasing rapidly. Besides, the critical minerals and energy security finds a very important place in this visit. And that's why I find that the more of investments by the two countries are important. And that's why CEOs of around 130 companies are
Right.
meeting Prime Minister Modi in Melbourne. And that is going to be, very, very
Right.
effective type of trade diplomacy this time. Sure.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have to discuss this. But I thank you, Ambassador Gupta and Professor Agrawal, for taking out your time and for your valuable perspective. We now have some breaking news coming in from Iran.